Hello, everybody. I'm Saleha, and this is Chai Chat and Community. Tonight, I'm joined by Dr. Preeti Khillan, a well-known obstetrician. I can never say the word OBG. We are talking women's health. Did you know that in 2022, the estimated new cases of breast cancer diagnosed in Australia was 20,640, out of which 20,428 are females. Breast cancer was the second most diagnosed cancer in Australia in 2022. I've got all these stats from Cancer Council. It is also estimated that there were 3,343 new cases of uterine cancer in Australia, which means 1 in 44 women risk being diagnosed with uterine cancer. Again, from the Cancer Council of Australia. But before I introduce you to Preeti and we talk about women's health, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting tonight, and I pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. Thank you for joining me, Preeti. Much, much appreciated.
Thanks a lot, Salea. Thanks for this opportunity, to just do a live talk and address a wide group of audience. I just feel very honored and privileged to be here today.
Thank you.
So I'm very happy to just talk about women's health and answer questions as well.
Thank you. Preeti, before we start, I know all about you, what I've seen on LinkedIn and what I see on social media, the amazing work that you do. Can you please tell our audience something about yourself?
So I'm an obstetrician and gynecologist by profession, and I have been in Australia now for 20 years. Started my career and my training back in India, and then I have had the privilege to work in many countries. Actually, went to Saudi Arabia and worked there for 5 years. That was absolutely like a different environment. Then went to UK and finally came back to Australia. So I have been privileged to work with women, of different cultures, and hence working with the multicultural community is something which is really very dear to me. It's my passion, and I happen to be working in the western suburbs of Melbourne. I am an obstetrician gynecologist with attachment to Joan Kerner Sunshine Hospital. And I am a director of Western Specialist Center. So I practice, my areas of practice is Moonee Ponds, St. Albans, and Werribee. So again, this is again an area where there's a wide multicultural community. So I think it's my passion to work with women with different culture. So again, I'm very glad to be here today.
Thank you, Preeti. So, we are going to talk about women's health. So, what are the two must do tests that women should have?
Right. So in Australia, I think we have one of the best health systems, in the world. And I think, again, I would only rate two countries, Australia and UK, where we have, really good screening programs and the two must-to-do tests. So one of them is, I'll start with, is screening, breast screening. And very important again, as you just mentioned, the statistics about breast cancer. So, and I'll be talking a little bit more about how common it is in women. It's the commonest cancer which affects women. So that's why, we would have had more than 22,000 cases in last year. So breast screening is something which is highly recommended, and it is a free screening program which the government runs after a certain age. The other important screening program is the cervical cancer screening test, which is again in our as a national protocol. It is offered to all women. So these are the two tests which I would really recommend women to go ahead and do, because we can prevent things from going in further into and prevent cancers by early detection. So these are the two tests. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Preeti. We'll take one test at a time. So, shall we start with breast cancer?
Yeah.
Uh,
So yes, go on, Celia. Sorry.
I just wanted to know. So, I know women over, we were just talking before the show started that women over 50 get free breast cancer screening tests, and the government obviously, sends us reminders about when the test should be done, and all you need to do is go online, book your test. What about women under 50? What do they need to do?
So yeah, look, I mean, the Cancer Council has different sort of recommendations, but look, just with breast cancer, if I say this is one of the commonest cancer which affects women. If you look at the statistics, 1 in 7 women in Australia are diagnosed with breast cancer, compared to 1 in 550 men, right? So this is the most common cancer, and look, that's why if detected early, and we could look at treatment options, and has a very good survival rate actually. So yes, the national recommendation from the Breast Cancer Screening Council is to screen women from the age of 50 to 74, and that's by 2 yearly routine mammograms. So for women under 50, I would strongly suggest that self-examination of the breast is a good option. So, and this again, this onus is on the woman itself, because I would say stand in front of the mirror, look at your breasts, right? If you notice any change in the size, in the color, or if you, I'll just talk about self palpation as well. So, ideally, what we recommend that use your 3 fingers and use the pad of the 3 middle fingers, palpate your breast all around. All right. I think it's a very good thing to do, because women can take responsibility for themselves. If you notice any change, you notice any lump, then definitely go and see your doctor or your general practitioner. So many women, have done this sort of thing, and they have been able to diagnose a lump. So go all and feel all around your breasts softly, then with a little bit more pressure, and definitely feel your armpit. It can be done 6 to 8
Oh,
weekly.
armpit also.
Yes,
Armpit
because
also.
that's where some women found, that they have the axillary lymph node, and that was the beginning, that was a spread of breast cancer. So this is what I suggest women, that definitely do that for yourself. Stand in front of the mirror, compare the size of your breast. Any deviation, and when you do this routinely, then you will notice that if you have noticed any change, and which is alarming, please go and see your doctor. Now, in terms of breast screening as mammograms and ultrasound, some women who have a strong family history of breast cancer, or they are carrying the genetic, they're carrying the gene, that's the BRCA gene for breast cancer, they begin screening routinely very early. But in standard, because breast cancer is more common as women age and over the age of 50. That's why, Australia has set up this routine breast screening. There are free breast screening clinics, in almost every suburbs. So, and you don't even need a referral. You can just walk in, and get yourself screened. So these are the two things which I will strongly recommend, women to do. So that is talking about breast cancer. Now, for the cervical cancer, is the standard cervical screening test. Now, this was called the pap smear test, but in 2017, on the 1st of December, the society, the cervical screening society, changed the name of the test to cervical screening test. This is routinely offered to all sexually active women from the age of 25 to 74. So this is a routine screening test which is offered to all women. And the whole thing is, now the good thing about the new test is it's screened in the same way, but the interpretation is to detect a virus which is largely responsible for cervical cancers, which is called the HPV virus, human papilloma virus. And if a woman is found negative, it is very unlikely that in 5 years' time she would be positive for the virus, for to change it, the cells to change into cancer. So that's why now it's a good thing that this test, if you're negative, it's only offered 5 yearly. So again, this is also a very important test, done, all free, and I would recommend all women, because we've got such a good screening program that the incidence of cervical cancer in Australia is quite low. So the incidence of cervical cancer is actually 1 in 160 women, so it is quite low. Around 8 or 900 new cases are diagnosed every year as compared to breast cancer. And this is again because of this vigorous screening program, and all the awareness which is being created, that we have actually done very well in Australia. And the other country which matches is the UK as well. So I was attending a conference, I think last year, and you'll be surprised to know that in a country like US, they still don't have a routine screening program. So, I mean, I think we are really privileged to be in this country, and we should all avail these sort of opportunities. Yeah.
Absolutely. Um, I was always, we were talking again, and I was always under the impression before, things changed, is that only people over 50 get cancer, but that's not true, isn't it? Especially for breast cancer, as we were talking. Uh,
No, that's not true. But yes, for breast cancer, it's more common as women, age
age.
and in the 50s. But look, it can occur at any age. But cervical cancer, on the other hand, can occur at any age. All right. So once women are enter the third decade of their life, cervical cancer, can occur at any age. And in COVID times, I have to, share this experience that there were two women. I They had not had pap smears at all. Migrants been here for a very long time, and they came with symptoms of abnormal bleeding. And unfortunately, when I examined them, I said that, look, this does not look good. And there were two women in a span of 3 months, and that was in 2020. That they were diagnosed with cervical cancer, and they were both in their late 30s. So it just broke my heart, young women with young family, and just a little bit of negligence, a little bit of lack of awareness, that they had been in this country for a long time. But nobody had really emphasized the fact that, look, you really need a cervical screening test done. Because the good thing about the cervical screening test is that when we do the screening test, we look for the HPV virus and we screen for precancerous cells. And if detected early, there is a very good treatment cure for the precancerous cells, and this is how we prevent it from changing into cervical cancer.
So, Preeti, because we're talking cervical cancer, what are the survival rates?
The cancer, cervical cancer. Look, it is not as common as I said that there are around 8 or 900 new cases detected every year in Australia. So, and I have worked in India, and the incidence of cervical cancer was really high. So,
Really? Wow. Okay.
yeah, it was very high. I'm talking about when I did my training, that was quite a while ago, but because there was no routine screening in India, and even till now, there's nothing like a national program, no routine screening. So the incidence here in women is around 1 in 160 compared to breast cancer, which is 1 in 7. And
Yeah.
again, I put it to the fact that this routine screening has really helped in decreasing the incidence down over the past couple of decades.
So what you said was, if somebody, what should women look for? Uh, like, we know what to look for when we are doing a breast screen, or before, you look at your breast. For cervical cancer, what should they be
Yeah.
aware of? What should they look for?
So any abnormal bleeding, right? Any
Before
abnormal,
and after periods?
yes, yeah, before and after periods, in between periods, any abnormal discharge, even if you have like a persisting discharge and this has been a new onset, any pain in the pelvis, something which has been, any change in the bowel movements. These are all the things, which should really alarm you. So if you're having routine menstrual cycles, that's fine, you know what your periods are like. But any bleeding, if you start bleeding, say 10 days before your periods, or if the bleeding after your periods is continuing for a week more, or you're bleeding in between your cycles, which is something a new onset, then definitely, women should be alarmed and, look back and think that when was my smear done, and don't just leave it, just go and see your doctor. Very important, to have all the investigations done.
So we talked about women over 25 who should get a cervical cancer testing. What about young girls who are sexually active and under 25?
So, see, the national recommendation has changed when we went on to the cervical screening test. It used to be over 18, but because we are doing that HPV testing, the incidence went, and also it went on to 25. But look, any young girl who has been sexually active, if she has had multiple partners, or if she has any abnormal bleeding, she should be screened as well. So there is no age limit as such, because I mean, as I said, cervical cancer can happen in any age. So any young girl with any symptoms of abnormal bleeding, and that is one of the indications for doing a cervical screening test. And also, if you've had multiple sexual partners, you're experiencing, some worrying symptoms, please go and see your doctor. You will be screened with the cervical screening test.
Okay. Thank you, Preeti. I want to go back to breast cancer because I have this in my head and I have to ask you this question. So you said for breast cancer, you feel your breast if not every day, at least as much as possible to see changes. Can you see it with your naked eye or is it just inside and you just have to feel it? Can you see a change in your breast? I mean, sizes, how different with other sizes? Is there a marked difference or is it very minimal? Or can you see a lump over your skin?
See, a lump is usually something which is felt by palpating the breast, But people who routinely get into this habit of examining, just seeing their breast standing in front of the mirror, if you find anything which is different, and you feel that you have a dull aching pain, and you look and you see, oh, this breast looks bigger, and it looks different to what I had seen, as I said, it is 6 to 8 weekly test. Then that is the time, just go and see your doctor. Anything that is alarming, anything that is different. And look, there's nothing with the size of the breast, because again, that is, a variation which we see in every human being. But palpating also actually is really, because I again saw a lady who I saw someone last year, and she was 49, and she was diagnosed with breast cancer. So this is someone I had been seeing for the last 10 years. And then when I saw her, there was an addition in the history that she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I said that, how did you find out? Because the thing is that you have not entered into that 50 year of age to have a routine screening. And she said that, doctor, look, I'm very this thing. I always used to palpate and examine my breast. And then one day I had a little bit of ache, in my arm, and I felt my armpit, and I felt something hard there. So this is one of the things, though it might not be, we don't know how much it is recommended that women should,
Yeah,
but I think we are all responsible for our own health.
absolutely.
Yeah, we have such a
Absolutely.
large responsibility to carry, children, work, family. So, I would recommend women that, look, let's all be a little bit more vigilant. And this is how my patient told me that she felt a lump there because she was 49, and I said that, oh, how did you diagnose? And then she said, this is what happened. And then I immediately went to my doctor, had mammogram and ultrasound, and I had a big lump there, and it came out to be cancer.
I know, so I know, I didn't know a colleague's relative. She was in her mid 30s with three children. She'd just given birth to the third child. I think they were 2 years old, and she had breast cancer, and it was a long, drawn out process, and it kept coming back. And so, it's, and I think mistakenly for many years, and we still believe that this doesn't happen to us, but it can happen to anyone, isn't it? It just
Yes.
catches you so unawares.
Yeah, that's the whole thing that, with breast cancer, I don't think that we have, unless somebody's carrying the gene, unfortunately, if it's running in the family, who is affected. It's like those cancers, that we do not know what to do, And usually that's how I think routine screening definitely is one of the preventive factors from, getting into a real cancer stage or diagnosing things early.
Thank you. um, Cervical tests. I remember when we first came to Australia, my daughter, as I told you, she turned 15, and I think for 3 years, I think for a couple of years, they were given shots. And then when my younger daughter went to secondary school, she also was given shots, and they said it was cervical shots. Are they still doing that in school, and what can parents expect? Because for many of us, these things are not there in our countries of birth, no matter where we are coming from, whether we are in South Asia, whether we are coming from Africa, or South America, or Europe. These are not available in our countries of birth. So can you explain little bit more of the cervical shots, please?
Yeah. So now, it's been over a decade, over a few decades, we've had that the cervical cancer vaccine, and the commonly used vaccine is called Gardasil, right? And it is targeted for all children between the age of, usually 9 to 25. But now,
Oh,
as a part of the national immunization program in school, girls and boys both are getting the vaccine between the age of 12 and 13.
even
So,
boys.
yeah, boys as well. Because the reason for this is that boys are vectors, men are vectors, and they carry the HPV virus without having any symptoms. So if men are prevented, that's how women would be prevented as
Yep.
well.
Okay.
So this
Yeah,
is the
makes sense.
reason.
Yep.
So yeah, so we are offering all children between the age of 12 and 13, and this age is the optimal and right age, because this is usually before the onset, before the start of sexual activity. So, because more than 70% of cervical cancers are caused by the HPV virus, so giving this vaccine, what we think that in future there will be better herd immunity, for people with who've had all the children who are getting the vaccine now. We also have to remember that, look, even if you have got the vaccine in school, you may still carry the HPV virus. The reason for that is there are more than hundreds of strains of the HPV virus. Now, with science and technology, we have been able to culture around 9 strains of the virus. The common ones and the ones which are very deadly are the ones which we have targeted. They are being covered in the vaccine, but there are still so many strains. So I think science and technology, we are trying our best with the advancements to see what can be done. But this is the level this is where we have gone up to now. Now it's a safe vaccine, just there could be just some side effects of swelling in the arm, a bit of fever, a bit of pain. But look, very rare cases of anything adverse with this vaccine has been reported. So I strongly encourage, everyone to get their children in school vaccinated. It's a part of the national immunization program. It is free. So, I think we should all get our children vaccinated.
Thank you. So before we leave tonight, what is the message that you would like to share with women who are watching our program?
Yeah. So what I would like to share is that, look, there could be so many types of female cancers, right? We are blessed with routine breast screening and routine cervical screening tests. So I think we should, all women are encouraged that, look, please take that responsibility yourself. Look at, when your last screening was, and keep that. The government also sends a reminder. But look, I would tell everyone that you keep writing in your own diary, in your own calendar, that, look, I am due for my breast screening or cervical screening test, next year or the year after. I've just done it now. The other thing is that, look, some cancers like ovarian cancers, there's no screening test, right? So we should actually make use of the screening tests for the cancers we have. But for women, you are responsible for your own health. If you have unusual symptoms, pain, bloating, abnormal bleeding, abnormal discharge, drastic change in your menstrual cycle, please do not, just ignore these. Some women just take things, they don't have time to get, their own health checkup. And things like ovarian cancer, unfortunately, is something which is only detected quite late. But there could be some warning symptoms, so we all have to look out for these symptoms. And very important, for women to take care of their own health. So this is what I would say, that, look, let's all, get into this, screening program which we have, get our children, immunized and vaccinated, a good thing which, we get offered by the government here. But, look, a woman has to take responsibility for herself, and any change in any history, any abnormal symptoms, go and see your doctor. It doesn't harm to go and get an advice. Your periods may just have changed. It might be that you've been very stressed and just like a hormonal imbalance, and that's why you had heavy bleeding or you bled in between your cycles. But, it could be a marker of other things as well.
Thank you, Preeti. There's a lady from one of the western suburbs. Gee, thank you for watching. Yes, much required. She's tagging, I think, all her friends in her group, which is great. Um, Thank you, Preeti. This has been very